Hey everyone, I'm Sam.
And I'm Stevie.
And welcome to another edition of No Questions Left Behind, where we attempt to answer all of the questions we didn't get to during the YouTube Live earlier this week. So, as we say every time, you guys are always great at being very active in the comments. I think this was close to a record number of engagement. We've got quite a few pages here of questions. So we're definitely not going to be able to get through all of them, but we'll do our best to get through as many as we can. We've got, I think, 2 more giveaways for you guys today as well. So we're going to announce one of those right off the bat, just to get it out of the way so we can get to the questions. Leah asked a ton of great questions, and she, I believe, is relatively new to our live. So Leah, email us at winners@griotsgarage.com and we will get you hooked up with one of those 2-step G9 kits. Great giveaway, especially if you're just entering into the realm of paint correction.
Yep.
And yeah, tons of great engagement. The basic polishing tends to be our most popular of all the topics. So we've asked you guys this before, but if there's any topics you want to see that we haven't covered yet, or ones that we have that you like us repeating, please let us know in the comments section. We always like to pay attention to that, and sometimes we run out of ideas, so if you guys have great ideas, that saves us a little trouble as well.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and get started answering questions.
All right, so the first question is from Leah. What is the difference between the G9 and the G15? Keeping it simple and cut and dry, the G15 has a longer throw. It's going to be a little more aggressive. It's also going to create a little more heat. That we recommend more for like a pro enthusiast, so someone who has a little bit of experience, although someone with no experience could definitely pick that up, and as long as they kind of have an idea of what they're doing, they're going to probably be fine. But long story short, G15 is more aggressive than the G9.
Yeah, more aggressive. It also has some additional features, variable speed trigger, CNC machine counterbalance for a smoother operation, a more vented backing plate, more advanced backing plate. But there are a lot of other features that are shared as well. The ambidextrous speed dial, trigger lock, the ergonomics, and so on. So main thing is aggressiveness, like Stevie said. Team Ramey asks, how many towels do you recommend for the completion of an average sized vehicle? So we did cover that last night, but it's a question we get a ton, so I wanted to go over it again. Typically, sorry. I was saying pads, because that's the one that we get a lot. Towels, man, I would say probably, if you're talking about towels that you're using to wipe off the polish residue, I'd probably venture to say 12. 8 to 12. I like to swap them a lot because you'll notice you're going to redeposit residue onto the surface if you're trying to run a towel too long, because you'll just get buildup and you'll go to wipe off residue, and at the ends of your passes you'll see it going back onto the paint, which can be very frustrating. You kind of end up chasing your tail.
For sure. I think part of it depends on what product you're using as well, because you might be using a thicker product like a wax that's going to require maybe a couple more towels. It's also going to depend on how heavily you apply your product. If you're a little more heavy-handed on your product application, you're going to have more of that building up in the towel, so you might go through the towels a little quicker.
And your towel management. If you're being sloppy, you're definitely going to go through towels faster.
Exactly. But last night, Sam had mentioned about towel management and how you keep your towel folded twice, right? And that gives you 8 clean work surfaces. So as long as you're maintaining the towel being folded that way, then you have those 8 clean surfaces to switch between before you switch to the new towel, and that will extend the life of your towel a little bit. Okay.
Does this new product smell funny to you? I can't keep a straight face. Paul River said we're at the bad dad joke portion of the show or earlier in the week during the live, and I don't think we responded to him. So Paul, there's your bad dad joke. I had to throw one in there. It took me a second too, so don't feel bad, Matt.
Leah also asked, how much product do you need per surface area? We kind of covered this a little bit last night, but really not a lot. The first time you use the pad, you're going to butter it. So essentially you're having that light swirl of product that covers most of the pad, at least works its way into the pad. After that, you just want to reapply about 4 pea-sized drops around the outside edges. So, well, not the actual outside edge, but towards the outside. So northeast, southwest is typically how I like to think of it, but you just apply those 4 drops and you're ready to keep going.
Yeah. Jason Lillis asks, how often are you cleaning and swapping pads when doing a car? At the bare minimum, you should be swapping pads at the halfway point, and in my opinion, you should clean your pads after at least every panel, ideally after every section. So basically, every time you pull the orbital off the paint and go to wipe off product, I typically do it in this order. I'll polish, I'll wipe off, I go back to my cart, which is usually right behind me, I grab my compressed air nozzle, I blow out the pad, I put more product on, I move on to the next section. I repeat that every single section. Every time I pull the orbital off the paint, I'm cleaning the pad. That allows you to run that pad longer and still get consistent results. So if you aren't cleaning the pad frequently, you'll notice the results you were getting when you started with that pad are taking much longer to achieve the longer you go without cleaning that pad or swapping that pad out. So at the minimum, 2 pads per car per process, switch at the halfway point. I'd say ideally you're running 4 pads per car per process and switching at a quarter. Yeah. That's going to ensure you're getting fast results, not chasing defects that you were getting out in 3 or 4 passes at the beginning that are now taking 9, 10 passes to remove.
Yep. Yeah, and again, the 3 to 4 pads really depends on the size of the vehicle that you're working on. So you may need to bump that up if you're working on a large slab of lead like we have next to us here. But lost my train of thought.
I was going to say, if cost isn't an object, obviously the pads are not cheap. So we try to gain your guys' trust in that these recommendations aren't an attempt to just sell pads. These are things we found as we detail full cars that really help maximize efficiency, get you more consistent results, save you time, and so on. But we do understand that they're not super inexpensive. If money is not an issue and you have no problem buying a ton of pads, I would say do 1 pad for every panel. So every time you have a panel break, that's a new pad. That's like the optimum way to get the fastest results and have the easiest time. Obviously not for everyone, but if you're going for perfection and you really want to have an efficient experience, I would say that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and knowing that you can wash and reuse those pads. So yes, you're going through them quick for this job, but those pads are still going to last you a long time.
Yeah. Some of you guys are going to think that sounds ridiculous. I'm not saying it is by any means required. Just in my use, I've found that is my favorite, my preferred way to do a full car and get consistent, solid, fast results.
Yep. Any Tech asked, were you doing something special when making or breaking contact with the surface? Really the most important part is making sure that the pad is on the surface before you start the orbital. That's going to help prevent sling, and then also making sure that the pad stops spinning or at least slows down significantly before you pull it off the paint, again, to prevent sling. And then starting on a low speed before bumping into your 4 to 5.
Yep. Ren asks, how much dwell time for the polish? Is it different per polish? So for the strict polishes or protection-free products like correcting cream, fast correcting cream, perfecting cream, complete compound, complete polish, those do not have any sort of cure time or setup time because there's no protection in them. The only products that you want to leave on the surface for a period of time before you wipe off are products that contain protection. So like ceramic all-in-one wax, this one's an immediate wipe off, so you don't have to let this one cure. Do a section, remove it right after. Products like our ceramic liquid wax require a 10-minute cure setup time. So going to vary from product to product, but if it does not contain protection, you do not need to leave it on the surface. You can wipe it off immediately. Typically that's recommended. It's just going to prevent the residue from becoming sticky or more difficult to remove the faster you wipe it off. So.
Yep. Heavenly Details asked if we can show an example of implementing the Boss Interflex pad. We won't be able to show it here today, but maybe we'll do a reel on that here shortly. But essentially the Interflex pad is this thing here in my hand. They come in 3-inch, 5-inch, and 6-inch sizes. And it essentially adds another layer of foam between the backing plate and the actual pad that helps add a little bit of extra conformability. And of course it has all these cooling holes to help with air movement and keeping the pad cool. But we'll cover that more deep in a reel here in the near future. Show it in use.
Clifford Wirtz asks, can you machine polish large plastic parts like taillight lenses? Absolutely. It's a great way to really brighten up your lights on the vehicle, whether it be taillights, headlights, marker lights. I've done plenty of cars where you get all the paint done, and especially taillights, you see the swirls in them a lot more because of the darker colors, the reds and ambers and such. And if you get the paint nice and polished and you leave the taillights alone, they just stick out like a sore thumb. So it's a really nice touch to give those a polish. And our plastic all-in-one is a great solution. The lighter Boss creams can also be used on plastic, so like perfecting cream, correcting cream. But plastic all-in-one is specific for it, so that's what I would tend to recommend. It also contains protection, so if you have oxidation issues, if your lenses are starting to oxidize but not quite bad enough to replace or do a restoration kit on, that will help remove that oxidation, give you more life out of that plastic surface.
Yep. Ernie asked, it would be nice if the bottles were color-coded for each pad, referring to the Boss creams, and they actually are. So we've got these colored bands across the bottom of the bottle that show which pad we recommend starting with. That's your jumping off point, and then you can finagle from there and pick the right pad for the job if you need to get more or less aggressive.
Yep. Cindy Nero, another commenter with lots of good questions, asked, what's the best towel for soft paint? I probably have some of these on my cart too, but I saw yours first. So the plush towels are what I always recommend for ultra soft paint. Really, regardless of what you're doing, the plush is going to ensure that you're not putting any towel marks into a soft paint surface. This is our ultra plush edgeless in the gray. These are a slightly thicker, higher GSM than the standard plush edgeless microfiber in the blue. Both excellent towels. I tend to prefer the standard for polish removal because it's a little thinner. When you have a sticky polish residue on certain surfaces, it's not going to roll over on you as likely as the thicker ultra plush may. And then for like quick detailing ultra soft paint, I would tend to err towards the ultra plush because you're just going to have more nap, more weight to the towel, more thickness to help absorb not only the quick detailer that you're using, but also more places for that dirt and contaminant to go. That's going to help make a safer process, keeping it away from your delicate paint surface. So either of the plush options are what I would recommend for soft paint.
Yep. Cindy also asked, which creeper do you prefer for the lower sections of the car? As you saw last night when Sam was, or Thursday, when Sam was polishing the side of my door, he was sitting on our compact sit-on creeper 2. But that also features the mini creeper, which is fantastic for the even lower sections where maybe ideally you'd be sitting on the floor, but you do want a little extra leverage. You know, it's a little harder to get up these days. I don't know.
And it just allows you to move around. You can scoot around instead of having to, stand up and down.
Yep, also great for kneeling.
Yep.
And you can, conveniently move without having to get up and down each time.
Yeah, I like kneeling on those a lot. Puts you at a good height to do a lot of different things. If you're sitting on a creeper doing wheels or like really low portions, especially on a lowered vehicle, you're going to be putting quite a bit of strain on your lower back, bending over. So getting even lower down on the mini creeper, like Stevie said, will definitely save you some pain the following morning.
Yep. Me asked, how long should clay last? Depending on which one you're using, if you're using our traditional clay bar, typically you'll get about 7 to 10 vehicles out of that, but it really does depend on how contaminated they are. You may get longer, you may go through it quicker, but on average, 7 to 10 vehicles.
Jason Lillis asked, how often should you machine polish? Yearly? There's no right or wrong answer to that. It's really going to be completely dependent on your preferences and goals and what you're using the vehicle for, what type of environment that vehicle's in, how it's being cared for. I would say yearly is a good rule of thumb to operate by. That's what I tend to do for my personal vehicles. I'll usually polish them right around now, late winter, early spring. Get them nice and freshened up for the nice weather during spring and summer. And then I'll leave them alone until that season comes around again the following year, unless I'm testing products on them, which happens a lot. They get kind of a patchwork quilt going. But it really, it's up to you and what the condition of your paint is in. If your paint looks great 2 years after you polish it, maybe you can go another 2 years if you're being really careful with your maintenance and how you're maintaining in between those paint corrections or polishing jobs. But no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, but the better you care for your car, the longer you're going to be able to go between washes typically, between polishings. So just make sure that you're following best processes, and that's going to extend the amount of time that you can go. Don Thomas asked, after washing your pad, does it need to completely dry before you use it? Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you'll get a mess if you try to polish with a slightly wet pad.
Yep. And then Ren asked, do you need to apply wax after polishing? What happens if you don't? Essentially, the wax is protecting the work that you've done. No, it's not going to protect against scratches or, kids throwing things at your car, anything crazy like you get on these claims with the ceramic coatings. But it is going to help protect against, especially water spot etchings, bird droppings, things like that. It's essentially a sacrificial layer that's protecting your paint, that and then oxidation as well. So while waxing isn't going to be the end of, not waxing isn't going to be the end of the world, it's definitely best case scenario to protect all of that effort and care and time that you put in to put that wax on.
Yep.
I would never recommend not waxing.
For sure. You need some sort of protection down. Ren asked, does Griot's ever come to Ohio? Yes, we do. We go to the Columbus Good Guys every year. So if you're around Columbus or that's not too far of a drive for you, come out and see us. Our events team is awesome, and they'll definitely take care of you. So
yep.
Show season's ramping up.
Sure is. Leah also asked, is the G9 your go-to polisher? For me, it's the G15. Is yours?
Mine's G15 for sure. I do use the 21 with a 5-inch plate a lot, and I still use the 9. I tend to prefer the 5-inch pad size, so all my tools are converted to 5-inch plates. Not only for the slightly amp up and aggressiveness, but really just the additional versatility of that slightly smaller footprint. Most of the vehicles I do are newer, so you got lots of tricky curves and contours and angles to approach.
Yeah. I'd say my second favorite is the hybrid micro.
Yeah. That's a tool that every time I use that, I don't want to put it down because it's so quiet, it's so smooth. It's a much different experience than the large platform corded tools. So if you haven't picked one of those up yet, I would strongly encourage it if you need a small platform tool or if you're looking to upgrade. It's an awesome tool.
Yes. Bevan McCain asked, can you wash the pad between each panel? No, we wouldn't really recommend that because you want the pad to be dry and it's just not necessary. So while you wouldn't wash it between each panel, there's nothing wrong with swapping out to a fresh pad after each panel and then washing those pads after your job, and you can reuse them on the next job. But washing between each panel is unnecessary.
Jason Lewis also asked, do you wet or prime a pad before putting on the product? No, not with our products. All of our Boss Creams and the Complete line are designed to be put onto a dry pad. They have enough lubricity built into the formulas that they don't need you to prime or wet the pad prior to help reduce dust and things like that. Typically, that's why you prime or wet a pad, is to minimize dust and add lubricity, reduce dry spots, things like that. That is not necessary with our products. So that's another benefit of our system. Takes that step out, makes for a much cleaner polishing job as well.
Yep. Again, Leah, which just further cements why she was picked as a winner, asked, do you have a different pad for glass? And yes, we do. We have our synthetic rayon fiber glass polishing pads. We didn't really cover that in this live, but maybe we'll include that in a future one coming up. But they are really great. They give a little more bite than our foam or microfiber pads would on glass, and so they help to really effectively remove any water spot etchings.
Yep. I had a couple questions at what speed to clean the pads at, assuming you're talking about with the pad brush. I'll normally just leave it at the speed that I'm polishing at, really. I would say speed 1, I think, was the specific speed that was asked about. That's too slow, because really as soon as you put contact with the brush, it's going to slow down the pad so much that you're not really getting much cleaning ability. So I'll normally clean it 3 to 5, speed 3 to 5. I'm normally at 4 to 5 because I rarely turn it down just to clean it. So you don't need a lot of time. I'll tend to, don't fire it up and start cleaning it right here. I'll usually hold it, angle it down towards the ground in case you do get some sling. It's not getting in your face or anything like that. One way to prevent dust when you're cleaning your pads, especially if you're using compressed air, if you're in a small garage, you can get quite a bit of dust flying around if you're using compressed air to clean your pads. So I've actually found a recommendation that I tried and it worked quite well. Fill up a bucket with a couple gallons of water. It doesn't have to be full. And then aim your pad at that bucket as you're blowing it or cleaning it with the brush, and that'll catch some of that dust and keep as much of it from getting airborne.
Yep. Another thing too is as you get comfortable with that blowout process, make sure you're not pointing the air directly at anything that you really care about or is hard to clean, because I definitely, when I was first starting to use that as a cleaning process, I definitely left some polish lines on the garage door that I may or may not have been bullied for.
These garage doors out here have some splatter on them if the sunlight hits them right.
I don't know who would do that.
You, Stevie? I think all the garage doors here have polish splatter.
That's true. I'm looking at some right now.
Yeah, there's some on that one too. All right. What light color should a black pad be used on? It's not necessarily color specific at all. I would say the black pads actually excel more on darker finishes because typically it's dark finishes like this plain black Lincoln that are going to be more finicky in that final step or in your fine polishing. So I'd say I rarely use black pads on light colors because normally the, like say, orange foam, finishes down really well on a light colored vehicle, and you're not going to need to go further than that. So it depends what you're working on for sure, but typically I only break out the black pads when I'm working on something that I'm working to get perfect. I'll use a yellow or black pad to finish, or if it's a dark, finicky paint system.
Yeah, kind of goes along with that, but Team Ramey asked any pro tips on detailing or paint correcting white or light colored vehicles. My pro tip is that they're more forgiving than any other vehicle color, so do your best. But if you're starting to learn and you kind of want to check your process and know how well you're doing, I'd recommend choosing either like a colored vehicle like red or blue, or like a darker vehicle like a black or a dark gray. And that's going to help you kind of see what you're doing or not. Light color is going to be more forgiving, which is great for you unless you're trying to perfect your technique. Yeah,
I'd say another tip too, really for all colored vehicles, but on light colored cars, you're going to have a hard time seeing the product residue. So making sure that you're wiping that off completely, having a good set of lights. Defects are also harder to see in light finishes, so having a good set of focus lights again is going to help you get the job done more effectively because you're going to be able to see those defects better. A lot of light colors, especially like silvers, without focus light on them, they may look perfectly fine. So if you're not checking as you go with a good, strong focus light, you may miss a lot.
Yeah. And additionally, on top of that, sometimes depending on how metallic and reflective the paint is, I've had situations where, a light silver is really, really reflective, and even with a bright direct light, it's hiding a lot of that because it's so reflective. So making sure that you hold the light at the right angle so it's kind of bouncing off and back into your eye. Like if you're kind of like this, typically you can see those defects a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good tip. But yeah, lights are essential to really any paint correction or polishing that you're going to be doing. We didn't talk about that a lot on Wednesday during the live, but you at the very least need to have some sort of handheld, round beam LED to inspect the paint as you go. Ideally, if you have something you can set up and move along with you, that's kind of behind you, constantly on the surface, that's going to really help a lot as well.
Like our shop lights with the tripod, which are currently on sale.
Yes, they are. But yeah, lots of good options out there. It doesn't necessarily have to be anything crazy. You're better off, running a cheap light off Amazon than nothing at all. So,
yeah, and we see this all the time. Your flashlight on your phone is not going to do it.
No. I like to tell the story of one of the first cars I detailed when I was starting out was a black Dodge Viper, and I did it in a dimly lit garage. Wasn't checking my work as I went. Pulled the car out in the light after 7 to 8 hours of polishing, and left a ton of stuff behind. I had to do the entire car over again to get it to the point that the customer was expecting. So spent twice as much time on that detail than I should have, and if I factored in my hourly rate, it probably was below minimum wage on that job because I had to repolish everything. So check with lights as you go. You'll save yourself a ton of headaches. It's essential. Might be one of the best tips for a beginner or someone who's just getting started.
Yep. Rachel Drives Clean Cars asked, when's silicone-free detailer coming?
Soon.
Yeah.
Trying to think of the exact
March,
date
isn't
off
it?
the top of my head, but
yeah, end of this
I
month.
think we're technically early April now because of production scheduling. So slightly later than we anticipated, but still very soon, just right around the corner. It'll be worth the wait.
That it will.
I can guarantee you that.
Carlos Rivera asked, Complete Polish and Complete Compound got a new label. They sure did. If you remember, they used to come in a yellow bottle, completely opaque, and now they come in our standard clear bottle with a yellow label instead. Nothing has changed about the products themselves. They're still your favorite Complete Polish and Complete Compound. They just come in this bottle now. So exciting. We got a makeover.
Very attentive observation. Cameron Huntsucker asked, how can you tell how much clear is left? Great question. Something we didn't touch on at all. But technically, a paint gauge or a paint meter is the only way to positively tell how much clear is left on a vehicle surface. Most of those are only going to work on metals and not plastics. There are very expensive units out there that will do multiple substrate types. Our unit that we offer will do ferrous and non-ferrous metal, which is nice. It will at least work on aluminum. A lot of the lower cost units you see on Amazon and stuff will only do steel, which depending on how old your car is, a lot of new cars don't have a whole lot, if any, steel on the body anymore. So you gotta be careful with that. Do your research before you buy something and make sure it will work on the vehicles that you're gonna be using it on. Our paint gauge is pretty great, but yeah, that's the only way to positively tell. As you get experienced, there are signs of paint getting very thin. Oftentimes you'll get like a speckling, almost looks like solvent pop when paint's starting to get real thin before you burn it. On single stage paint, on a dark color, you'll actually see it start to become lighter as you go through. So if you see, like on a black finish like this, if you were to start seeing like a brown tint as you're polishing, you want to stop. If you keep going, you're going to get more and more and more brown until you're down to actual primer. So obviously you don't want to do that. But in most cases, unless the vehicle has been haphazardly refinished or a really severe paint correction done on it, been hit with a rotary in a body shop or something like that, typically you're not going to have to worry about much, specifically if you're using the processes that we talked about on Wednesday. And least aggressive method necessary, not camping out in sections, using tons of pressure, that sort of thing. So I always try to reassure people it's a very safe process. It's almost difficult to do damage in most scenarios. Like you have to try a lot harder than you would think to burn paint on a healthy clear coat.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, agreed. And I think that ties back to those horror stories about people using rotary polishers and causing damage easily. But agreed, I think that you'd either have to be careless, either in that you're doing things that you know you shouldn't be, or you completely don't know and are doing the wrong things, or intentionally try in order to cause damage, especially with a random orbital.
And we like giving the recommendation, like, you know, if you have a beater car sitting around or an old panel or something, or you don't mind going down to your local junkyard and spending, you know, 50 to 75 bucks, take a panel off a car, or if you have one laying around, or a beater at home.
Someone in the chat yesterday, which I didn't see, but I always forget about this, it's a great tip, is body shops sometimes will give away damaged panels.
Damaged panels. Yeah, they're just going to throw it in the dumpster. Yep. So check your local body shop if they've got any to give you. That's a great tip, Stevie. And then try to burn the paint. Like, see how hard it is. Set out to go through the clear, and I think you'll be surprised in most scenarios how hard it is. Now, you want to take that with a grain of salt and understand that not every vehicle is going to be the exact same experience that you experienced on that test surface, but it gives you a good kind of gauge of where you know you need to start worrying or stop going after something.
Yep.
In terms of getting a scratch all the way out or leaving a little bit behind.
Yep. James Dean asked, is the G9 random or orbital? It's actually both. It is a random orbital. The random comes from the free spin that begins with the forced movement. So once you're running the tool, that free spin will start. But that's how, when we were showing last night, if you kind of tilt the pad weird or put too much pressure on, it slows down that free spin or completely stops. That's what adds all the safety that we've been talking about to a random orbital.
Yeah, and random orbital is synonymous with dual action. So dual action and random orbital mean the same thing. Forced rotation orbitals are different in that they don't have a free spin. It's a forced rotation like a rotary, but you also have the orbit, you know, that helps add some safety, makes them safer than a rotary tool.
Yeah. So like you saw how we were spinning the pad or the backing plate of those tools. Yeah. Whereas with the rotary,
spin that by hand.
See, that's the rotary.
Free spin.
You can't spin it, and if I spin it, you can hear the gears inside turning. So that's the difference there.
Gear-driven rotation on rotary versus free spin rotation on a random orbital or dual action polisher.
Yep. Here's a fun one. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Oh, man.
Pinoy Car and Bike Guy 88, which I feel like every time I see this guy's name, he adds another kind of vehicle. He must be living the life. But he said, what's each of your favorite thing about the polishing process? Mine, as cliche and simple and whatever as it sounds, is just the instant gratification when you wipe the polish off and you see, okay, it looked like this before, now it looks like that. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I could go back and forth, for probably a half hour between each section. That's why my details take so long. But
absolutely. I mean, I'm right there with you. The rewarding effect of making paint look perfect is very satisfying. I really like when I have the time to get a surface as perfect as I possibly can. That's a lot of fun to me. I'd say I rarely give myself that kind of time on my own vehicles, but when I'm doing a vehicle for a customer and they want it perfect, I'm like, all right, let's do it. That's a lot of fun to see kind of how far you can take a paint surface to get it back to perfection. Obviously while mitigating risk as well. But yeah, I mean, I really like polishing dark colors too. The light colors are nice because they're kind of, easy in a way. It can be a little more of a load off when you're doing one of those, but there's nothing more rewarding than taking black paint from swirled and scratched to heck back to a perfect, glossy, beautiful finish.
Agreed.
It's very satisfying, which means it's fun. So.
Ren asked, how do you know what pad to use and how do you know when it's too much? Really, it's going to be you doing your test section and seeing how the paint performs, because like we talked about yesterday, there's no one simple answer. Like, oh, you have a black Toyota, you're going to want to use this pad. It depends on the level of defects. It depends on how the paint's responding, how soft or hard it may be, and multiple other factors. So what we recommend is starting with the least aggressive method. So if you're not sure, maybe take the next step down. If you're like, I think the orange pad with the correcting cream, but that might be too much because it's not that bad. Maybe try the perfecting cream and the yellow pad first, and then work your way up. And then how to know if the pad is too aggressive. If you do a test section and you look at it afterwards and you see maybe a light haze or marring left behind on the surface, where it doesn't look completely dark and clear, it almost has a little bit of like a foggy look to it, that's probably going to be an indicator. Well, it's not probably, it is going to be an indicator that you need to step back on some part of your approach, whether that's the pad, the polish, or potentially even the orbital.
Yep.
And our customer service folks are all trained really well, so if you ever do have any questions, maybe you do a test section and you're like, I'm not sure why it looks like this, you can always shoot us an email and they'll be able to take a look and address.
Stevie's just saying that because she's the one that trains them. So. If they don't know what they're talking about, let us know because it's her fault. So. Cindy Nero asks, is it true that ceramics in polish or wax are hard to get out of the pad or towel? Yes and no. So there's some caveats to that. I would say, like ceramic all-in-one, yes, it is hard to clean out of pads. There's no way around it. I recommend that you like mark the back of your pad with a Sharpie and dedicate that pad to this product. So use that pad for all your ceramic all-in-one applications. Then it's not that big of a deal if there's a little product remaining in there. You won't run into any issues that way. But yes, the all-in-ones, ceramic liquid wax, those are tough to clean out of pads. So don't expect to get a pad perfectly clean when you're cleaning those products out. Liquid infused ceramics like our ceramic 3-in-1 wax, ceramic speed shine, and so on, those will wash out of towels no problem as long as you don't let them dry in the towel. So put your towels, in the laundry shortly after you use them, and don't let them dry. Don't throw them in a laundry bin and leave them in there for weeks on end, or you will lose absorbency.
Yep.
In that microfiber. And then like high solid ceramic coatings, which we don't offer yet, but they are out there. Many of you guys use them. A lot of those will make wipe off, removal towels crispy when the product cures in the microfiber. So a lot of high solids coatings recommend that you throw away your towels after you use them because the towels will get hard and then could actually scratch the surface as well as losing all of their absorbency properties.
Yes. Cindy Nero also asked, do you have any videos servicing the polishers, like changing the grease and the brushes?
Oh, very nice.
So they're actually lifetime lubricated with, say it, Sam.
Mobile 1 molybdenum disulfide.
But the brushes are actually really easy
grease.
to replace, and we do this intentionally so that you don't, especially if you're using the tool for like a professional setting where you're making money, if the brushes wear out, you don't have to worry about being without that tool, sending it in for service. These brush covers here very easily just unscrew. So you can remove that cover, pull your brush out, swap the new one in, which your tool actually comes with a replacement set, or you can get some from our customer service team. But you just swap out that new brush and you're ready to go. Put the cap back on. It's all good.
Easy peasy.
Cindy, we've been saying her name a lot too, though. I think that she deserves a little something, something.
Yeah, Cindy Nero, that was what I was going to say next, actually. You're the next winner. So you're our final winner. So email us at winners@griotsgarage.com. I almost always say the old email address still. Winners@griotsgarage.com, and we will get you your two-step G9 kit shipped out to you. Congratulations, Cindy.
Yes.
Nero, you guys are all great, as always, tons of questions. So we really appreciate it. But yeah, Cindy and Leah had lots of good ones in there, so giving them some love. Thank you for all your support and great questions.
Yep.
I think we got time for what, 2 more?
Okay, I'll do one, you do one. Tim Wheelis asked, lost my spot. Okay, tips for bringing back the color in the gel coat on my boat. So you can actually use, especially like 1-steps are really easy, especially on larger surfaces like that. You typically get a good cut if you bump that up with a slightly more aggressive pad. And that way you get the polishing and the protecting in 1 step. But bringing color back tells me that it's most likely oxidized and or has some buildup of like hard water, like water spotting kind of nastiness. So I would recommend polishing with an all-in-one, or you can take it a little more in depth and use something like correcting or fast correcting cream, and then a wax after that.
Very nice. Dirty Harry Auto Detail asks, best products to use to clean ABS plastic or rubber if you sling polish? Great question, because if you're just starting out, odds are you're going to sling polish. Even if you're a seasoned veteran, it'll happen. I slung a little bit the other day when I was using a fresh white pad. Shame on me. But rubber prep and surface prep cleanser are my two favorites, depending on the surface. If it is rubber or ABS textured plastic, rubber prep does tend to be the stronger of the two. Surface prep cleanser I normally have on my cart already, so I'll typically try that first. If it's a little more soaked in or stubborn, then I'll go grab the rubber prep. I just like using it with the, well, really depends, but typically an Ergo Wave, a swab, or just one of our multi-purpose utility towels are good ways to go about that. But great question, because that's a problem that everybody's going to encounter at one point or another, and there's easy solutions to it. So, yeah. And then obviously, like Stevie said on Wednesday too, taping is very important. If you're taping, you're probably covering at least a portion of those surfaces, which will help prevent any sling from sticking to them if you do have that issue while you're polishing. So,
yep.
All right, that was a lot. I think we had to keep it a little shorter than typical, so apologize for that, but always do our best to get through as many questions as we can. Keep them coming. If we didn't answer them today, we apologize, and we will do our best to get to them during the next live and the next No Questions Left Behind. So keep tuning in. If you haven't already, get down there, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up. If you want to, if you have a lot of time on your hands, just go ahead and go through all of our videos on our YouTube channel and give us thumbs up and comment on all of them. Now, you'll be our favorite customer. But no, all the engagement helps us out a ton, so we appreciate it greatly. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, have fun in your garage.